Oh, what the hell, man?
Sorry.
Come on.
Listen, push it.
Peace, unity.
That's motherfucking. Hey, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, come on down. Push it.
What? Never seen a man with some muscle before? What you just saw though was a complete reconstruction of the introduction to one of the finest Game Boy Advance games ever released, which, if you know me, you'll know is one of my favourite games of all time, Wario Land 4. It's easy now we have systems like the Switch to laugh at the past, but it's difficult to overstate just how much of a giant technological leap the Game Boy Advance actually was for handheld gaming at the time. The original Game Boy was a giant clunky mess whereby the screen was green and you could only see what was on it if your vision was augmented. The Game Boy Color was much better, but it still looked pretty washed out. But the Game Boy Advance was just stunning. Well, stunning at the time. Nowadays, on paper, the system looks like a complete joke. Did you know that the Game Boy Advance had a processor that only ran at a clock speed of 16.8 MHz and had just 256 kilobytes of RAM? For those who don't know hardware that well, to put it into perspective just how minuscule that is, the Switch processor runs at 1020 MHz and has 4 million kilobytes of RAM. That means to match the RAM of just one Switch, you'd need 15,625 GBAs. Wow. Which leads a lot of people to go, Alex, how can one of your favourite games of all time possibly run on such limited hardware? This must just be nostalgia. And yeah, looking at it on first glance, I can see why someone would think that. I mean, it's also a platformer, and how many of those has Nintendo made over the years? But if you think this is just going to be me nostalgia gushing with my rose-tinted goggles on, well, yeah. But also no, this isn't just another boring Nintendo platformer. This game is well and truly a masterpiece of game design in almost every way. And I'm here to show you how a game doesn't need top-of-the-line hardware to truly be great. Oh, this is going to be a fun one. So, according to a newspaper, a pyramid packed with treasure has been found in the jungle. Thus, Wario sets off to try to find it, and does. He goes in there like the bumbling buffoon he is, jumping into a hole, only to fall flat on his ass in the middle of a dark room. Inside the room, there is only one other door, leading to the entry passage, or as I like to call it, the purple passage. Inside of the purple passage, he finds a painting and a switch, which, when pressed, opens up a vortex to another dimension, which he, naturally, jumps into. Makes sense to me. Thus the game begins with its first level, the Hall of Hieroglyphs. This place basically serves as a tutorial for the entire rest of the game. Tutorials in Nintendo games tend to be an absolute slog. If you've ever played a Mario and Luigi game, for example, you'll know exactly what I mean. The games constantly take control away from you and force you to read lengthy dialogue boxes just to learn the most basic of techniques. And it's not just Nintendo games, most modern games are like this. Take Witcher 3 for example. The start of that game has tutorial boxes constantly interrupting you every 5 seconds. The Hall of Hieroglyphs, on the other hand, has none of that. No annoying dialogue boxes, no taking control away from the player. Instead, the game teaches you how to play using hieroglyphs, hence its name, and leaves you to figure out what to do yourself. This is so much better, as there's no greater way to teach a player something than to actually let them bloody do it. Something I wish more game developers would learn. Those with a keen eye will also have noticed that the figure in the hieroglyphs is none other than Mr. Game & Watch, the first video game character Nintendo ever made, even predating Mario himself. Hence, why he's a hieroglyph, as he's ancient. You'll find that's one of the recurring themes of this game, unnecessary but awesome attention to detail like that. But I'm sure that some of you have probably noticed that the way that the levels in this game look is a bit, weird. Look at the background here. Looks like it's straight out of Resident Evil or something like that. I have a theory as to why the game looks so eerie. I'll go more in depth on this later, but for now, just keep in mind as you watch how the game does look a little bit off, doesn't it? Something that isn't off, however, is the soundtrack. Oh, the soundtrack. This game has absolutely one of the best soundtracks, period, and that's quite an achievement considering this game is on the GBA. GBA cartridges could only hold a maximum of 32 megabytes. As a result, a lot of tunes ended up getting compressed hard just to fit. For example, take a listen to the in-game compressed intro soundtrack. Now listen to the raw, uncompressed version.
You wanna test it now? Your time is over. I've had enough. Here I come. Look out, here I come.
A truly staggering difference. I can't imagine how frustrating it must have been for the composers to have their hard work crushed in such a fashion. Either way, it still sounds top notch. Just to warn you though, I'm going to be mentioning the soundtrack a lot here. But yeah, back onto gameplay. You can of course jump, break blocks, sprint, beat the shit out of plums with eyes, throw rocks, use your ass as a missile. There's a lot of different types of movement to be had. It's not like Metroid where there's a shit ton of different niche abilities, but it's also not like Mario whereby you can basically just jump. Not too complex, but not too simple. Speaking of Mario, as that's also a Nintendo platformer, many of you are probably thinking that this is just the same shit but with Wario instead. However, you'd be very, very wrong indeed. In Mario games, you start at point A, and the objective is simple. You need to keep going right until you get to point B. Then the level ends. Wario is totally different. Levels aren't linear, just having you mindlessly go right until it ends. Instead, you can go left, right, up, down, sometimes having you backtrack or perhaps find a secret route or room. There is a point A where you start, but from then on, you're free to explore in any direction. So now you're probably thinking, oh right, so it's like a maze, you have to find your way out and escape, right? Well, it's not that simple. When you enter a level, you have 3 main goals. The first, to find the key. In order to get to the next level, you need to find the key to open the door. But that's not even enough, as in order to fight the boss at the end of the passage, you need to find gem pieces. Every level has 4 gem pieces hidden around it, and you have to get all 4 to make a gem. Okay, so you get the key to open up the door to the next level, and then you get the gem pieces to make a gem to open the boss door. Okay, now what? Deep inside every level, you'll find a frog switch. Oh, I see. So when you have the key and the gem pieces, you just hit the switch, and then the level ends. Oh, that's easy enough.
Hurry up!
Upon hitting the switch, the level doesn't end. The fabric of the universe starts to fold in on itself. A timer appears, and you have to get right back to the start to escape before time runs out. But even then it's not that easy. Sometimes the level can change. New routes can open, whereas the route whence you came can be blocked off. This absolute anxiety simulator is by far the most memorable technique used in the game, and it really is pure genius, forcing players to backtrack and put their memory to use while under stress. If you fail, you've spent all that time gathering the key and the gem pieces, and now you could lose it all. So we escape, and the key opens the door to the next level, and we can put the gem into the boss door to open that. Alright, boss time. Wait, what's this? Mini-games? You may have noticed that each level has these gems and coins scattered throughout it. You can pick these up, and then spend your hard-earned cash here to play a minigame. There are 3 available to choose from, so let's go through them all, shall we? First we have this baseball game where, well, you just hit the ball. Ooh, yeah. Still looks better than the Amico. Second, we have this jumping game. All you have to do is jump over the shit that gets in your way, and the higher your score, the faster the game goes. This is probably my favourite out of... Wait a minute, rewind. Are we just going to ignore the fact that they put a cactus with tits in a Wario game? Yeah, actually I think we are. Let's move on. Lastly, we have this match game. All you have to do is match the face correctly. It's basically just a memory test. Yeah, this one used to scare the shit out of me. From doing well in these minigames, you get awarded a golden token, and you can spend these in the item shop to make the bosses easier to kill. Wait, so let me get this straight. You play the game to get a currency, and then you spend that currency on games to get another currency, and then you spend that currency to get items. The more tokens you have, the better the item will be. Alternatively, if you are elite pro like me and don't need any items, you can just come in here and receive a free smile from the shopkeeper. This is apparently a reference to Japanese McDonald's, whereby on their menu it says you can get a smile from one of the staff for free. Apart from being the most Japanese thing I've ever heard, I can tell you right now, in British McDonald's, no one smiles. Alright, so on to the first boss, Spoiled Rotten, which again kind of serves as a tutorial boss. Alright, let's see here. Seriously? What is this? An eggplant? Alright, doesn't look scary to me. Am I the only one wondering how this game got rated E for everyone? Bosses in this game kind of work like raid bosses in World of Warcraft, having multiple different phases depending on how much health they have. But this one is relatively easy. You just sneak up from behind, and job done. But before we move on, I want to rewind a moment. You see, the way this game sets up its boss battles is some serious next level emotional manipulation, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You start off anxiously waiting for the boss door to open, then you're put right in front of the boss, who slowly reveals themselves. Then there's a second of silent ambience, and boom. It just goes from 0 to 60, and you're on your own. When a player is about to face against a boss, you want them on edge, and this does a great job doing that. It's like in audio production. When making a track, you never really start off with action, you build it up slowly, then unveil a glorious chorus. That's exactly what this game does to introduce its bosses. It's tempered suspense, and it's absolute genius. Alright, so after the purple passage, the real game begins. You know a game is good when we're well over 10 minutes into this already, and we haven't even got done with the tutorial. 4 other passages open up, each having its own unique style and having 4 levels each, rather than just 1. We have the Emerald Passage, the Ruby Passage, the Topaz Passage, and the Sapphire Passage. Question is, which one should we do first? Well, as a believer in democracy, I think we should have a public vote. Ladies and gentlemen, cast your votes now. Wait, what? Red one? Fuck. I want a green to win. Green's my favourite colour. Oh fuck it, just rig it, it works in real life. Yeah, there we go. Green. The Emerald Passage has levels that, as its name may imply, are all nature themed. Palm Tree Paradise is the first of the bunch, and weirdly enough, also considered to be one of the easiest levels in the entire game. Not much to say about this place, honestly. It's just a cool beach with some caves. One of the few levels in this game that isn't completely strange. The most noteworthy part about it is probably the soundtrack, which, believe it or not, is a song.
Hello there! 雲が笑う
And yes, by the way, that really is the lyrics. I don't know about you guys, but I can't remember the last time a platformer level had its own song. And it's actually good too. Speaking of tunes, hidden in each of the 4 passage levels, you can find a CD collectible that you can go and hear in the sound room. And you're probably thinking, oh right, so there's a CD on each level, and it contains the level soundtrack, right? Makes complete sense. Oh no. This is Nintendo we're talking about. Nothing they do ever makes sense. Inside the sound room, you can play tracks that don't play anywhere else in the game, but they're really fucking weird. You see what I mean? Like, what the fuck is this? And what are all those weird pictures in the corner? You see what I mean by this game is fucking weird? Next we have Wildflower Fields. Think of it like Bug's Life, except the bugs are cunts. Oh well, at least there's a cool sunflower. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, in each of these levels you'll find a purple pipe hidden somewhere. If you go in there, you enter these odd puzzle rooms whereby this guy is here, who looks like a scientist with a... well, I'm not even going to say what his head looks like. It's just a place to get some extra cash, and you often throw this guy around to help you get it. Again, just another one of those things in this game that doesn't make any sense, and you kind of just have to roll with it. Next up, Mystic Lake, or as I like to call it, the mandatory water level. Unlike most water levels though, in Wario Land they are actually enjoyable, as the swimming mechanics are pretty good. Quite a relaxing level actually, I quite like the... never mind! Lastly, we have Monsoon Jungle. Now this level is a real pain. It's basically a jumping simulator with moving platforms and crocodiles who will try to eat you. Regardless, still very fun. With all 4 gems, it's time for the boss, who is... a giant plant. Not sure what I expected really. Sadly however, much like the last boss, this one is pretty easy as you can essentially do what I like to call the teabag mechanic. Overall, I'd say the Emerald Passage had some pretty good levels and boss. Let's go in the Ruby Passage next. These all have the theme of being somewhat technological levels. Starting with the Curious Factory. This place is essentially a manufacturing facility filled with scary looking robots that were so bad the inventors must have abandoned them. Here you can also be turned flat into a pancake if you're not careful, one of Wario's many different states that you can discover throughout the game. Overall, the level is scary as heck and gives off a really weird vibe. Not my next holiday destination, that's for sure. But if you thought that was a shithole, wait until you see the toxic landfill. This place is literally just one big dump full of shit. What's interesting about it though, is that it kind of works like Minecraft or something, or perhaps more accurately Terraria I suppose. The level is made up of all these different blocks and you can break them to get down to where you want to go. Now the level isn't completely dynamic, but it's interesting to see that such concepts existed even back then. Makes you wonder why they never saw the potential. And look, I know you're gonna hate me for it, but the soundtrack. Next up is one of my favourite levels, 40 Below Fridge, which, as its name may imply, is really just one giant fridge. Well, maybe freezer is more accurate for most people, but if you're lazy like me, your fridge is also probably this icy. But the reason this is one of my favourites isn't so much the level itself, but the soundtrack. I did warn you I'd be mentioning this soundtrack a lot. Lastly though, we have my actual favourite level in the entire game, Pinball Zone. This level is really unique, to say the least, as it's basically one giant pinball machine. Every room has a different colour and keeps the place feeling fresh. The level design revolves around using the pinballs to score goals to open up doors to advance. Yes, the GBA had physics, who knew? Not a lot of people like this place to my knowledge, as they say it doesn't have much action. But please, I'd rather have a cool looking original level like this than another Slamfest extravaganza. Get real! Alright, on to the boss, which is a bird in a giant clock. Quite easy as well in truth, you just hit the claw and you'll be in phase 2 in no time, whereby the bird within just starts shitting eggs on you. Overall, the Ruby passage had some top-notch levels, and honestly, it's probably my favourite overall passage. Why did I even rig the vote? The Topaz passage is up next, the theme this time being friendly places, starting with the Toy Block Tower. This level looks like how my living room did on Christmas back in the day. Before I realised the genius design of the Pinball Zone, this used to be my favourite level. There's just something about it. Oh, and you know what else is good? I don't even care, I'm gonna do it again. This soundtrack though. No joke though, this level definitely has the best soundtrack, hands down. It's the one everyone ends up remembering the most. Next up is the Big Board. This is an unusual level, as it revolves around a kind of bingo mechanic. You have to use these machines by jumping up at them. Depending on whether you timed your jump right or not, you can either be punished or rewarded. I imagine this level is one that people either adore or despise. I for one quite like it. Well, except this. I mean seriously, why is this game so disturbing? A level I truly despise is the Doodle Woods. Don't get me wrong, I like the art style. It's kind of like Yoshi's Island. It's cool in terms of aesthetics. But in terms of gameplay, you get chased around by this fucking pig who draws shit that comes to life just to piss you off. Wait a minute, creating problems out of thin air? This guy's nickname should be the mainstream media. Even in a video about Wario Land, I somehow find a way to insult the media. It's quite an achievement, actually. Lastly, we have Domino Row, by far the best level in this passage. Essentially, you are racing falling dominoes trying to get to a certain place before they do. It's a level that looks like it should be a stressful nightmare, but is actually really fun. Alright, on to the boss. A teddy bear with a mouse on top of it. Let's not even bother asking. Fun fact, this boss is called Aerodent. Get it? Rodent? Oh, Nintendo, you truly are a genius of language. And finally, we have the Sapphire passage. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't remember much about this place as it's horror themed. Crescent Moon Village is one of the most popular levels of fans. I don't know why, honestly. This place looks just like where I'm from in the north of England. An absolute depressing dystopia. I actually think this place must be based on here too, judging by all the red post boxes. You know you need to sort your life out when you live inside a video game's horror level. Arabian Nights, oh, I remember this level. I played it once when I was at the hospital for a routine checkup. I rudely blanked the doctor while playing this. I mean, come on, can you blame me? You seen these magic carpets? Fiery Cavern. Many say this level seems out of place compared to the rest, but what's out of place about a level based on hell? It's about as horrific as you could get. Even worse, when you press the switch, it turns into an Arctic wasteland. Oh, I get it, hell freezing over. Damn, that's smart, fellas. Lastly, we have Hotel Horror. Think Luigi's Mansion on crack. Not much else to say about this place. That wasn't as bad as I was expecting. I've become desensitised. Overall, some great levels all around, but not my favourite for sure. Alright, now this is the part where people are going to call me a lunatic, and hey, maybe I am just looking into this game a little bit too much, but do you remember when I said that this game looks a little bit wrong, a little bit weird, a bit eerie? Well, it does, and I was thinking why? Why does it look so strange? You know, the first time I played this game, it was about 20 years ago, and its levels are still stuck in my mind today. They're very, very memorable and nostalgic, but not just a little bit, a lot. In fact, so much so that I'd bet that someone who has never even played this game before would look at the levels in it and go, yeah, I feel nostalgic too. And I never even played it. And I was thinking, oh, why? Why is this the case? And then I saw these videos going around that were called something like disturbing but familiar places, and it was like these very strange places that were very empty and eerie and just wrong looking, but we all kind of feel familiar there. It's a bit odd, and a lot of people have said that they've visited these places in their dreams, and it hit me all of a sudden that Wario Land's levels are very dreamlike. They are the sort of places that you would visit in a dream. Having a look at some of those familiar places, I kind of made a correlation with Wario Land's levels. They do look like places in a dream. And I do kind of wonder if Nintendo was purposely doing that. I mean, this game doesn't look normal. It looks wrong. It looks like one of those creepypasta games that someone has made, right? It doesn't look like something that would come out of, you know, good old happy Nintendo. It really doesn't. I kind of feel like there's more to it than that, but I don't know. I'm curious what people have to think about this, because it can't just be me who's like, yeah, this game's really fucked up. Regardless, after completing all 4 of the passages, the center pyramid opens, which is essentially a mirror of the tutorial. Just one level, the Golden Passage, that's meant to be the most difficult in the game, followed by one boss, the final boss, the Golden Diva. This boss is, in my opinion, the best in any platformer ever made. Every time you do damage to her, she has a new phase. She also gets more and more ugly the more you attack her. I mean, ugh. Oh my. Oh, come on. Can't possibly get any worse. Oh my! After she goes down, Wario gets out of the pyramid with his bag of loot and literally rides off into the sunset. What a game. Now, some of you may be thinking, wait a minute, don't you make these videos to inspire us to play the game ourselves? What's the point now you've just shown us everything? And the truth is that Wario Land 4 isn't a game you're just going to play through once. It's a platformer, not an RPG. After completing the game on hard mode, you unlock super hard mode, whereby you have to start every level on just one heart. A great challenge if you ask me. If you want to actually play this game today though, well, as of right now, it's not that easy. I mean, sure, you can go on eBay and buy a cartridge or something like that, but apart from that, you're pretty much shit out of luck. I mean, I would never suggest you emulate a Nintendo game. That would just be... Who on earth would disrespect a company that treats its customers so well? No, definitely do not emulate this game on your computer. Don't do it, okay? Definitely not. That would be terrible. I want to give everyone a shout out in the Wario Land 4 community. And yes, I did just say Wario Land 4 community. Despite this game being over 2 decades old, it's still being talked about by a lot of people to this day, and with good reason. Did you know there's actually a website called the Wario Forums, whereby people basically just talk about this game all day? Apparently the site isn't as active as it used to be. It's been so long since Nintendo last made a Wario Land game, at least as of right now, so that's not much of a surprise. But still, I give huge props to everyone still involved with this game. These are just a handful of the people who helped uncompress the game's soundtrack, provided discussion, and even created level editors for it. Just absolutely top-notch folks. And I, just as much as you, hope that one day there will be a real Wario Land 5 someday. The only real complaint I have about the game is that it's too short. Nintendo clearly went for quality over quantity in this regard, but I do kinda wish that the game was, I don't know, a third longer, something like that. Maybe instead of 4 levels there was 5, I don't know. Overall, I can say with absolute certainty that even all these decades later, Wario Land 4 is still one of my favourite games of all time. I truly believe that it is one of the best, if not the best, GBA game out there, and it's definitely one of the most memorable platformers ever made.
For the dream that I had last night melted into my pillow. I made peace with the time I Bye.